call the third meeting of the Lake Kiowa Board to order at 6 o'clock. And then now to come to chair and sit down, we're gonna have to stand up for the pledge, please. Clear.
Goodbye.
We do have 7 directors present this evening, and we have a quorum. And so, the comments for the record from the president. The biggest thing that I would tell you, there's a small event coming up called July 4th weekend. You may or may not be familiar with it, but it is July 4th weekend. Coming up and what it's weekend and a half, this is a week and a half, right? Week and a half. How time goes quick. One thing I would make note for all of you is that the parade is going off at 9:30. Okay, so we moved it back 30 minutes, just letting you know. So lineup starts at 7:30 and 9:30 is when the parade starts. That's probably the biggest change for the whole weekend that we have, but we have a huge lineup. It's in this community from this last month. You can communicate it from July, on our constant contact. You can see what those agenda is. And we have lots of things lined up for the whole community. So we hope you come out and enjoy it. And fireworks are on July 4th, which is Friday night. And so that's when the fireworks show up. It's probably 9:15-ish, depending on the weather and the clouds and the sun. All right. So those are the 2 biggest times. Don't get confused. It is at 9:30 with the fireworks. It's 9:30 with the parade. All right. Okay. Any comments from the members? Okay. All right. I know that I have a couple of members that are out here that would like to make a comment for you, and I'm going to recognize them, and that is Sherry and what is your name? Something Mondo, I think. Anyway, I would recognize them. Just state your name and your line number for me. Okay.
My name is Jennifer Mondo. My lot number is 1303. Hello, my name is Jennifer Mondo, and this is Miriam Beebe. We are the co-chairs of the Kiowa Women's Club History Book Committee. Also representing the committee tonight is Sherry Dimmers, our 2024-2025 president, and our new president, Sandy Hare. Also, Debbie Keith is here. We have not the future history book committee members here. There are 6 of us on the committee that have worked extremely hard this year researching and gathering information to put out the newest history book, which chronicles the years of 2014-2015. And this is the book. It's beautiful, it's nice, but why not? It's renewed every 10 years. It was a lot of work, blood, sweat, and tears, but we did it. At this time, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Sherry Dimmers.
Hello, I'm hoping I'm going to stand, so I hope you don't mind you. My name is Sherry Dimmers, lot 1642. I'm privileged to be here tonight to bring a check to the Lake Kiowa POA. Some of you know or may remember last year they fronted us, I guess you would say it, the money to have these history books printed, with the intention that we would reimburse the POA when we sold the books. We have not quite sold all of them, 33 more to go. Whoever wants to buy, I'll look in here if you haven't already. However, we have sold, we were given, not given, but loan, $4,636.71 from the POA board. Thank you all very much. There's POA board. We sold the 199, so we have a check here for $3,980 to present tonight. And once we sell those other 33 books, making up the $656.71 that's left, we will present you with the final check to complete payback of our loan. Like I said, we thank everybody that was on the committee. If you were on the committee and you're here, can you stand up? I see a couple of people. Thank you. Everybody worked really hard on this work on the committee, gathering information, putting it all together. And in the future, we're going to have a new idea of how we're going to go to collect information. If we had to call you, okay, so I'm going to explain that. If you were on any organizations or chaired any groups out here at Lake Kiowa from the years 2014 through into 2024, you probably got a call from somebody on the committee. I need information. I need to know. What can you tell me? What went on at this time? And we researched back into communiques, looking at minutes, going a lot of work went into it by the 6 people and compiling it, putting it all together. So Sandy is going to tell you what an idea we have moving forward so that when we do the next year's 2025 to 2035, how we're going to do that to make it a little bit easier for the next. This is the 5th edition, so trying to get gather stuff for the 6th.
Hello, Sandy here, about Bridge 7, again, as a building install president of KWC and a member of the history committee. I decided we're not going to do that again, and so we are going to keep the history book committee alive and well, because as Sherry said, many times when we reached out to committees, the person who is president this year has really no idea what happened 10 years ago. So we want to keep the history book concurrent. So if you are on a committee, more than likely we will reach out to you at the end of this year so we can harvest all the great things this committee does and accomplishes to all its needs. So we can harvest that and keep it alive in file. And so by the 10 years from now, we can just go to our files and we'll just write them down instead of trying to create it from old communiques and ongoing facts. So, and for those of you who would also like to know, I have told Jennifer Monda that she is chair of the committee until the other 200 votes are sold. So thank you again for your support, and we love supporting our community. We will continue the history of Lake Kiowas and the Kiowa Women's. Thank you.
You're going to be selling history books at the craft fair at 4th of July. So please send your friends come by, which is the sell.
And we are continuing to take orders for the old books if you want the other forecasts.
They're online. You buy these online. We have added you today and all of the constant contact. So at this time, drum roll. We want to check. Everybody wants to check. I only get asked about every day. Where's my check? There's your check. Thank you very much.
Also, we always appreciate every facility, every month, every year, and you know that. But we not make it over. So thank you very much. All right, moving on, we're going to do our meeting minutes. The first minutes we'll consider will be the ones from May 19th, 2025. I've got a motion to approve for any correction.
All right, one small correction. In regards to, let's see, the line to talk to the next meeting, community, and this is next meeting. So, when he doesn't do things that changes, support recommend of work, we got a place where improvements and reviewing and still action.
Is there addition? Okay. There are motion to approve. Chris seconds, Ronnie. Ronnie makes the motion, Chris second, Ronnie, the second. All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you very much. My left-hand person, Dylan, is not here, so I have to work on that. All right, the motion is approved. We have approved the May 19th minutes. And how about the minutes from June the 11th, our special board meeting? The additions or corrections? Is there a motion to go ahead, Chris?
I made a correction to Gerald's name in 5A. Just spelled correctly, and then there was a double iteration in 5B. In the first part, was a stone landscape retaining wall. 3I was also repeated as 7I below, so I believe the one below was repeated.
The others. Is there a motion to approve the June 11th minutes? Cecil?
I motion to approve this with the correction.
Okay, thank you, Cecil, for a second. And Chris seconds, all right. You have a motion to approve the June 11th minutes. All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, we had that, wait, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 0. All right. All right, the minutes have been approved and Dan Bessie, now for financial update.
Thank you. All right, gonna go through the normal information. I've added a couple things as we go through this. So, from a revenue point of view, actually, a really good month. We'll talk more about that in a second. So almost exactly even in a month. From a revenue perspective, we're actually slightly above from a revenue perspective. Rich and team continue to do well on the expense management side, so we're significantly below our expense numbers. So, you know, for the month, you know, we had thought we were gonna lose 20-some thousand, we ended up with a $56,000 gain. This is still pretty good. So on the revenue side, again, our plus 697, building permits are higher, income on operations money that's been invested by the POA is up. And this year, I noted that go forward, more gas fees and all. As we talked about before, sanitation's up a little bit, that's due to the contract, this inflation increase that I put in, that was higher than budgeted. The rules committee didn't meet, so we didn't have any kind of citations done. So a little bit lower revenue for this one, but we'll continue on quickly. All right, on the expense side, again, we're doing pretty well, $32,000. So good. I don't know why this, I guess all the rain is a good thing in that you save $17,000 on irrigation on the golf course. So all the destruction of the storms hits, there is a little silver on it. Overall, we're good, you know, see the market was a little bit over, that's because of some equipment, which didn't tend to do a great job of busting on the buoys that needed to be replaced. All right, this is one of the additions that I put in. A couple months ago, we talked about the lodge convention I put into the budget. In the past, we had kind of a supplement built into the lodge budget that it was not, we never assumed that the lodge was going to break even. And last year, the board put a challenge in front of Rich, Jeremy, and others to think about how do we put a break-even budget together and monitor where we are against the budget. I think we all believe that break-even was not possible, but I think Jeremy and Rich and everyone else is proving us that this is closer to reality than possibly think of. So for the month of May, the lodge actually had positive income of $9,400. So I don't know if in other months, I've asked a few people in the launch actually in positive income. So in recent memory, that at least that didn't happen. So I want to say congratulations to Rich, Jeremy, running the launch committee, and all the people in the launch for continuing to make that experience good so people come more often and spend more money in launch and are able to try more. So congratulations. So on reserve funds, one of the things you'll see is the R fund is down, $330,000. And that's from planned expenses that are built into the R schedule. And 200, the biggest piece of that is $200,000 on roads. There was some other equipment that was purchased. We had some more spending in the R budget this year, so we'll see that total number of assets in the R fund go down. Year end is going to be lower than it was today. So, and this is a big increase split with the golf course. So we have $1.8 million there, 34% of that's going to get pulled out and put into the golf course reserve fund. You're going to see people do that. Or is dwindling as far as the amount of assets. Again, that's not a surprise. The schedule that it was maintained and we looked at multiple times. Our is not funded at 100%, it's probably closer to 20 to 30%. Let's see. So, interest income, $200,000 a day, initiation fee, 15,500 this year, this month, 80,000. So, again, lots of income coming into the POA from things besides produce. This is the state of where we are just from a cash balance perspective. Go to the next slide. Another new feature that I'm including today is the Treasurer's Gold Star Award. And this month, the Gold Star Award goes to Cecil Heath. Cecil doing the, review above and beyond from a board member, went back and looked at the cash balances month over month over month and recognized that for April and March versus what's in the May report versus what was in the April report versus what was in the March report. The numbers for the checking account are dramatically different. And, so not only was he going through the board package, but going back and syncing that automatically for automatically. So it turned out it was a reversing a journal entry that was a mistake, that wasn't caught. Thanks to Cecil that now was caught and we're perfect to coordinate.
How about pay for that?
It was a lot of money. Yeah, it was a lot of money. The money was there, it just wasn't the wrong place. So, a lot of credit to Cecil. The investment side, you see that we're trying to get a little bit longer as far as the investments that we're in longer as far as length or duration, try to capture a little bit more income. At some point, the thought is that interest rates are going down a little bit, so we want to be a little bit longer to capture higher interest rates for a longer period of time. There's a lot of ways to go. We're still looking through this, but you can see that we are moving away from some of these 4-week things to 13 to 6 months type of investments and gains along. One more there. So, okay. Also, a couple months ago, I showed the historical inflation rate, the CPI, and during the height of COVID, inflation rate in our area, in Arlington, was dramatically higher than the rest of the U.S. We were at, you can see that on the left-hand side, May, April, June, that, inflation rate here was over 9%. The rest of the U.S. was dramatic, it was lower 6-ish%, but the rate of decrease for us was much faster. So right now, you can see the latest numbers of May 2025, we're at 0.6% year-over-year as far as inflation, but the rest of the country is close to 2.2 or 2.4%. So prices, inflation have come back. Inflation has reduced dramatically faster here than it has elsewhere. So that's obviously benefit us. Again, over the last few months, I've been starting to look at or have been looking at things that would go on in Kiowa and thinking about things that will impact the, decision making within the area, within the board and the broader community. We looked at population growth, we looked at inflation, we looked at dues, and so those are gonna, frankly, much less than inflation overall. But another thing that people talk about is, hey, it seems like there's a lot more money at Kiowa now than it was years ago. And this isn't a perfect example of that, but it's the level of income. And if you look at the 2013 column in the middle, Kiowa looks like the rest of the country and Texas, right? We have median income 55,000, median income 66, 51, 69 for the state of Texas. So we're not that different. But if you look at the 2023 numbers, which is the last numbers I could get, that changed dramatically in Kiowa versus the rest of Texas. So the median household income went up 121% versus 47% for the rest of Texas and 50% for the rest. So you can see there's some changes going on here within the gate. The population is growing, the income is growing, inflation has impacted us. So there's a lot of things that are going on in Kiowa, even within our community that are a little different than more 10, 20 years ago. But I thought this was just something interesting and good data point to have for folks as they start thinking about the community at large and some of the challenges that we have trying to create that. So any questions, or I should say, what questions do you have that I can help answer?
The board have any questions? Does the board have any questions? Excuse me. Does the board have any questions? No. Okay. Would you like to take one from the audience?
I'm happy to do that. It's appropriate.
Well, I think you have a couple of minutes, but no more. Go ahead.
Your name, lot number and all that. You gave lot number and everything else,
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir.
automatic, it's like 543 throughout your time. Where did you get the car numbers?
Well, look at the bottom. And the sources are from the census data tables. So there's different levels of data across the Kiowa and the Texas and US values. I can share more information with that. So it's a little bit interesting in that it's from the census, but it may not include all the weekenders or part-timers that are here. So, maybe skewed a little bit from that perspective, but it's the same in 2013 to 23, it's the same source. So the data will be, if it's off, it'll be consistently off, if that makes sense. And really, to me, it doesn't matter what the number is, it's really the change over time is dramatically different. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Is there another question up there?
Dave Paulson, 362. You're comparing the integrated value here, but you didn't integrate the CPI across that same period. That's a dramatic difference.
Well, yeah, right in the top, it says nominal dollars, so there's no inflation impact. But again, I'm not worried about what is the exact dollar amount. It's really going to change. And Kiowa's, it's been slightly different inflation rate in DFW versus the rest of the country, but not that dramatic. We'll skew the numbers to be meaningful in this example. But you could do the numbers, in an inflation adjusted manner, but it wouldn't make that much of a difference. Since the inflation rate for the last slightly different rate, also looked at from 2015 to 2025, inflation rate gave everyone up 40%. I don't remember the exact number for the US, but it was not that much different. But I could do that, that wouldn't be hard. Okay. Thank you for your questions, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, moving forward in the agenda, and this item of business is regarding to committee changes. We did last month approve setting up a ad hoc commission and vision committee. Those members have been, asked to serve, and they've all agreed to serve, they're reporting to, don't have a motion before me to, approve those people. So that Chris, is there a second? Sean, all right. And so. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, those opposed? So we will appoint those 8 people to the mission and vision. And name Bessie, because she's the first person on the list. You are the chair for that meeting. At the meeting, you can choose, everybody in there can choose that we will be the chair of the committee. All right? Okay, great. All right, moving forward, the next item of business is to, consider possible action on additions to the little book park. And to get those little box.
All right, Julian. So kind of a introduction here on we're setting this in my role as contract support with PLA staff. Also want to point out the presentation is about started with the 52-acre lot master plan. And one of the things that we keep doing is referring to this 52-acre property. And it's not a livable park. So what we're really talking about in this presentation is improvements to parks. Some about the land use committee, they're also care of that. Our Free Association. So contributing to the development of the site. Our recreation committee, that's a lot of the students. So there's a lot of fun, but the next one. So to give you an update on the Wool Park, Park Golf Course and this progress. And whether it's inside the building of the members of the committees and asked about when we get out there at tours now, but pretty kind of excited about what's happening. Little Wolf Lane is the access road that goes in there, asphalt driving range. The remainder of that is gravel roadway, and it's got some drainage erosion issues and what happened. That's why we're doing pieces to kind of learn how we go about this. Part of the golf course range is bringing neighborhood first, so the water's still running out there with that those streets wet. Driving and maintaining mats are installed. Driving range landing areas can prepare. Spring, later this week. The restroom is very soon. Fixtures and it changes. It's supposed to be on 20th. So it was some signing, other signs, the order. It's all of those in live. Brian around staff will around the day to day. So and while last notes, so they got a look, so they're doing the regular all of the maintenance out there now. Construction of the building range, equipment storage, have a polish, they structure. So gotta have that to involve track. So that's the progress also of the planning stage. Start something. Part 3 golf course, the driving range, expected to open late summer or fall. Everybody's kind of been touchy about kind of diversity and nature. But we are in time roads springs right now, so that's week we'll see when that heard that says you don't want to be on the course breeze, they're not that certain roads certain some traffic and okay. So we'll see how it goes. That's how ground construction, which was necessarily approved, is on hold until the project is closed. And we're in our process with that, but obviously, we'll
This is some of the plans prior to the project. Really, try all. So the development continues up here on the park side. Got three major elements, partly golf course, driveway, trail. And there are no drain activity site. We're gonna see the site on around there. And so further enhancements to the site. We're gonna help further address this further utilize itself, build on itself. Site. So we've got some things. But we look at it, you look at there's we discuss about it, it brings values, comfort, appreciation for all of us. So we'll be starting more meeting on June at that meeting. Items that funded through the donations, but other work. That includes some starting from $35 billion. Some additional grants for full-time billion, strong area, all that, active area. Retaining wall, 969, green, grade, aesthetics out there. Understand what the donation, takes carers. We have some funding for landscape materials, sort of gutters and cacti. Still help us, billion and donations from donated funds ready before the budget solving departments. Now I'm saying 5,000. So those all for me. Additional items out there and part of the presentation right now. Saying we'd like to see the remainder of the pavement for paved down the roads. This skills do that instead of the 1.6 budget, not $65,000. But then some items, what's being requested here is expand the grant rock area that east of $1 billion around the rest of the area. Allow us to get a food truck or park area or something that we're about to do. Allow something to better access things. Dams and electricity, water service, play area, electricity, fans, lights, water heads, building structure, brass heads, ceiling fans, and building. And then upgrading landscaping, there's some stuff. Irrigation, drill system, all green products and state plant power. That amounts to $50,000. So go ahead. Next slide. Great. Go ahead, next slide. So some reasons those strategies help. The three major elements talk about our football, course, driveway, overall the progress of the plan. Next slide. Just give you a little feeling for what the course looks like, especially the audience, ethics, it's over in 2025. You can see how all the sod, the paragraphs work really well. It's all getting better. It's so. This is a very recent photo that to show real well that the schematic fields that need area, all fairways, water, it's very great. Driving range, looking for the water tower, and of course the fire department team. Those are the maps out in the foreground installed. Driving range area, perhaps it's all so. It's not. Again, you could have a hard time seeing all this, but it's one of the things certainly understood. It was kind of a plan for how this is playing out. Having some additional alternate parking around the putting green, building area, owner recreation area. So next slide. So maybe obviously visualize the where how that is to, now the upper left is 6 to 9 grade. There, so stereo cases, so there needs to come in and the watch players. Well, just you work out what might look like. Next slide. Restroom looks very close, similar to that. Next slide is, I'm calling it sort of average area on patio with, yes, really very good. Sit outside. Again, this is available to them. Science, not just. Next slide. So we've got an entrance sign going to the park. We'll find. Fine. So I can overlay the current loop on this. See that go on under through there about really great restaurant. Fishing on a lower left hand side. That's something that we're out there. It's not a ties very nice with the trail systems. Access that. Next slide. The roadway is made up to the private right here, and that parking lot is made. But you see the yellow portion, that's what next to the road about the see. Next slide. Maybe we'll get a look at it too, and how the road would provide access to the restroom, the pavilion. There are parking out there, and we have a food truck with something out there, and that gravel over there would help. Would help provide a path for that. Utilities are right by the put the truck up. Next slide. This is current conditions out there about why we would like to see the road paved. So taking out a day or two after pretty heavy rains, and you can see the water out there. One of the trees was blown over in the storm. Actually, the two trees on the foreground right there. It's big old now portion. Next slide. Again, we're kind of learning as we go with the roadway here. We've been paying this earlier. We want fishing. We put drain tile underneath it or something. So we're able to learn a little bit as we go and see how the site's functioning. Next slide. Trying to show here this is the cul-de-sac at the end there, and kind of line that pavilion up, center line of that. Lower left-hand photo, you can kind of see there's already been some pad work and some gravel work being done to that pavilion. So, next slide. Then these is a quick summary of the items we're talking about: the asphalt paving, parking. That food truck might be able to access and off the cul-de-sac there to park on some clean service, electric water service of the pavilion. That's ceiling fans, landscaping, get some irrigation in there and improve next one. So, quick summary. There's a request at the table to consider funding Global Park improvement items outlining the pay. So $50,000. Next slide. And turn to James. I hope you didn't get blindsided with kind of certain. At the last meeting, James talked a little bit about funding associated with this, whether or not some of the previous language about the park would be all for us, so there was an issue with spending money on this park side. So he's got a short synopsis.
So just very quickly, I know that a summary was placed on the internet and circulated around, so I'll keep it kind of very short. But basically, the 52 acres is a property that is owned by the POA that the POA can monetize as it desires. The one issue that I think we're trying to be careful of is that we don't do anything that impacts the promises that were made as part of the election And what the election required was a proposed 9-hole golf course on the 52 acres. And so that was to be donated all through the donations. And so you can see that as this project has been worked on, that there has been a specific distinction being made between the donated funds that are coming through the election and the 9-hole 3-par golf course and what is being used to further monetize the property. And as I put on my summary online, I believe that it's going to be up to the board to look at the different requests of these funds and just be cognizant of the fact that what we need to do is make sure that if it is a general amenity to the 52 acres, that would be something that would not violate the intent of the election. And those would be things that the board could then fund through general POA funds, as opposed to things that are going to be more specific to the 9-hole golf course on the 52 acres. And so, as I put in some of my notes, I did a little more discussion last time. You know, as different pieces of this come up, I can make arguments on both sides of how different things could or could not relate to both the golf course and or other uses. I really think that at the end of the day, that is going to be something that the board at its discretion has the ability to do. You know, with elected representatives of the POA, but I just want to mention that is something that we look at as the process has moved forward, and just wanted to also bring to the board's attention as it's looking at these particular items. Again, I think there's arguments that can be made about how these benefit the 52 acres. They match the long-term planning. They benefit all members, and those are the types of things that will allow the use of the 52 acres and the addition of additional amenities.
Now, turn it over to Madam President, Board of Directors. And there are, let's say, there are members just doing some buddies.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, James. Are there any questions from the board in regard to parties before you, in regard to the Millwood Park?
Rich, what would be the source of funds? Sufficient funds that have not been otherwise allocated to pay that kind of using for this service.
Yes, okay.
Are there any other questions in regard to that? So the chair will entertain a motion, if you'd like to make a motion. In regard to additional amenities added to the Millwood Park.
I move to approve the $100,000 for the amenities of the Walmart.
I second
Second. Not to exceed or is it anything else? Okay. Yes. I noticed that NGE on it, so I didn't do that. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes.
Before we vote on this, suggest that we add James the note. Do this one.
It was over 30 minutes and to go with the packet. Okay, you can certainly do that. Any other questions or discussions from the board? All right, you have a motion before you to approve $50,000 for additional, for additional amenities to the Little Wolf Park, expanding granite pavement area, additional parking, electricity, water, and sewer plants. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed? All right, the ayes have it, and you go for $8,000 for those additional amenities from the park. Thank you very much. All right, and moving forward, the next item on the agenda is consider action in regard to the pickleball court bid. And I think, Bill Fox is up for that too.
All right, I'll just jump right in on this one here. And I think Mike Kirkland is here too, as well as some of the members from the Pickleball Association. So yes, question manager the back in January, the board approved project for the construction pickleball courts, not to exceed $975,000. That amount came from donations of 100,000 and board agreed that we wanted to participate in the amount of $175,000. That number, those numbers were approximately based on quotes we had received in 2024. I'll refer back to that later. But from a process standpoint, what we have done is we've basically finished the design diagram on the scope of work. We've all done with the help of the Ball Association members, leadership on that. And that information went into an RFP, it was advertised. We got a really good response. We have 11 vendors indicating interest. We had 7 of them submitted responses to the RFP. And we had multiple vendors come out and visit the sites. We were able to look at it, talk about that. I spent a lot of time answering the questions and everybody that so we work. And then the Pickleball Association leadership really was heavy lifting. We went out and did a bunch of reference sites that the vendors provided in the area. I went by, I was having to get in Oklahoma and went by the courts up there. There was the Euro courts, one vendor had both low Oklahoma. So we exhausted kind of looking at all of those particular sites that determined whether they would good quality courts. So from all that information, we kind of came up with a recommendation that you're talking about this evening. Next slide, please. So before we jump into the financial details, let me just kind of for the audience sake and refreshing everybody as to what we're doing with pickleball, so to speak, pickleball courts. This was envisioned also in the community master plan for the dam. We adjusted the site a little bit. We're not going to be using parking lot. We just finished using that for a bunch of storm damage. So pickleball courts out there. Next slide. What we're proposing is to put those courts just west of the community garden. And of course, we've got the sport facilities, the parking and restrooms, water, things there. We've been trying very hard to work with the topography that's out there and make certain we're not doing anything pretty more expensive, trying to do route drainage and that sort of things. That's been a very important part of the process. Next slide. I know you can't read this, but this was the project scope that went in the RFP, which was to construct pickleball courts. That's one item. Install pickleball court lighting. That's another item that they were bidding on. Install a shade shelter. That's a third item. And we also had some other improvements that we envisioned potentially doing such a contract or the house, which is I was down. So we also have paradigm or an engineering firm like that to oversee thing. Starting for this and president on the some. Next slide. Design diagram against all event sites, discuss like places, size, and various very basis. Next slide. So kind of help visualize what the is from, right? Several bedrooms, and so often goes from place and that. No trees out there. With this shape and there someday. Next slide. The perhaps showing the shade filter out here. With measures changes the colors and stuff, so somehow get some shade from that. Next slide. And for that social gathering area, those that are have permanent out there, that's where the people gather and watch the players. You can see what's on you really back in the building. Next slide. Okay. Now showing that the walkways, east, this walkway would extend over to the parking lot, give access to the rest of the so, next slide. Then bush and shelter in with something like this, so we can have something we have out there. Next slide. So it's a recommendation, it's one the recommending water source of Texas, a member of the American Sports Owners Association. And after all that, the people of all those sites, also association, they can kind of confer vendor to what you're just now. Next slide. Now, I think I'll get started reading all of that, but it's show you that it's a good town. We heard a lot of information. This runs to the market deals, average costs. Know the prices right up. So it's go ahead and throw that wasn't just one or two members of the kind of now it's so it's very good for panels. Next slide. Let me start by saying with this particular slide, this is some of the current negotiating price for processing it. What in RFP, they told us all qualifications, how they propose to go course, in response to information for also verification RFP. From there, the next step is to actually go to the contract that's all. This is information last time. So, then this is the other issue I had saying was well contractor. I would spend a lot of time with it, read that now. The position actually, one day came back with a cost standpoint, you have this back. So, the original source scheme proposal was $345,000 now, by support by and or construction this summer, those two ones. So they came back, they said we're going to $41,000. We're actually saving about $75 for on the roads that we will do. And in addition to that, they have included the sidewalk in springs previously posting and point head connecting like the surface line that's from the great box over there open ports. Now it's still we're still paying for it, but we're not doing it really good for it either way. It's now in the proposal when they negotiate this things for the supplier and it's cost and they really knows now currently so next slide. So our project budget authorization is $275,000 for donations for station. Cost escalated as we talked about and it's great about the have recommended is the increase in E-rate participation of $75,000. That would bring the project total not to exceed $50,000. And also includes deal expenses, that is the cost of the contract. So we would balance into the cost of the contract and $50,000 higher. So recommend or sports team. We haven't developed a contract yet. It's just go back and forth with sports team today and have both work on a contract and want approval also. So if you approve of the additional funding authority over 350,000 exceed, if you receive a contract with that you know, could also see the no construction. But we're anxious to move forward with this project. So the only possible that's going to be with that or you drive. So, it's a common about contracting our whole. But before months out for the next years. Association itself. People. I'm really sorry. Can you help around so that we can announce and you're not being regulations one. So, yeah, the way thing. But next one. Yeah, I mean, again, we heard of this kind of thing that associations are very good at, finding this timeline. We can't read it. Next slide. Kind of quick summary of that. So the finalized contract development. Or through the next week's contract, they would move into the pre-construction. Hit about critical weeks time for starting back in the spot. Yeah, scheduled for timeline. So they would allow us to final finance through or they would see construction. Mobilize in starting somewhere in August. Forcing until this we probably the first. Some of the depends on us, how that's not correct. It's less than the year that we probably going to listen to this. Slide. Yeah, or Michael with you, that's all right. I heard number that I think this president and into comments about product. I heard just want to say that from the critical board records, 100% support this proposal. I want to say that we told our community out here, critical players, one of the critical players, are very excited about this project and very excited about this particular proposal, even without the shade structure. But he wanted to know shade structure is very important to the place, that place down the sun to the rest, whatever is very important. And we wouldn't forget that. We can come back, all the student struggling, those who that don't have to our identity, our minds. Additionally, I want to say that Rich, Jim, done a great job helping us get where we are. I just want to say, I think we should. If you have any questions,
Anyone have any questions? People from your community.
yeah, I've got some. The project is still, I don't know what I call it concern, but it's just that we all need to think and understand that when we're going to spend our money on construction project, there's going to be long-term costs to the maintenance. It's not the most expensive bidder out there. I know, hopefully everyone's done their homework with the contractor and the support service and design of it, that when we spend this money, that we aren't back doing something 5 years later to that, you know, how, is there a warranty on that service? I think, Jim, I don't recall his, you call his specific warranty on the work service. 1 year. Yeah, I think it's 1 year. Yeah, normally warranty is short, but the issue with that is really the slab and the moisture with the surface. Surfacing lasts a good long while if we have proper slab. That's the purpose for having an engineer come out and make certain that the concrete is done properly, the grading is done properly, and all to prevent that moisture from coming through. I believe we've done everything we can at this point to try to ensure that it's going to be quality construction. Well, that's not vetting out the vendor that we want to build this everything.
But eventually in that, like Jim said, we went out and looked at a lot for, and a lot of that would look like. Porch. And. The porch weren't brand new, some of them a couple of years old, some of them were quite a little brand new, and they all looked bad. But we had no real concerns with sports team, so the other vendors was a different story. Well, the 14 product was really good, even the ones that were 2 years old.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure that, we vetted out a contractor that, will provide us with, with product that we're saying all the time. And we'll also have the call association pay for the soil test coverage. We already had that, the 27 page report was given to all the vendors in the RFP process, so they all had an opportunity to look at what was being requirements for according to that engineer to build the proper site out there. And we have, forcing look at it, they're very familiar with it, and we're right on line with it. About. Again, those are the approvals. When they submit their design, we will have Paradigm or a company take a look at that, and make sure that it's according to that work. That's good.
Can you put up the slide that we don't have affected?
Yes. Scott, you back up to. Keep going. One more. There you go. You did not have that. It's created.
A couple questions. So the first one was, I believe, 175,000 a year mark the money was in CDRF to do that. And that's about 175,000 in that fund, is that correct? Roughly. So another $75,000 you guys proposing this from CARF.
Right.
So I see this would be something for us later, but looking at CARF priorities, if you look at all the community kind of projects that are CARF for the and all those things, CARF basically goes to $10,000 to engineer. So, to me, I'm trying to think through the priorities of One Lane Bridge, versus this. I totally support putting the pickleball court out there. I've been advocating that since the beginning. But I just need to think through, how this fits. So then I kind of go back to Mike, pickleball guys, you all did a great job raising $100,000. Is there any appetite to kind of thinking about looking the money in some way to maybe we pick up, the core construction piece, from POA funds, but maybe, the pickleball association and broader community large, would fund a line or whatever ideas up there.
I see two problems with that. The first is that our fundraising effort to get to $100,000 was pretty costly. There's a lot of people have found that when we get into the part 3 and there's just wasn't that much money left out there for pickleball. People only got so much money, and we got what we could. There might be a little more that we could get, but to get to 75, I just don't see that.
Yeah, I'm not saying 75, but some subset there. How many people donated to the
About 60.
60?
So, I have a question for you. So, in the original spreadsheet with all the different vendors, when you broke it down, it was 276, 294, which was for the courts. So we have enough money. We're short $1,298, basically, to do the courts, correct? Because right now we have on the table 175 and 100, is that not correct? I'm just asking, I know there's a lot of.
The answer is yes, that number has been adjusted to that.
Yes, because if you look at it, a little bit now, it's about 293.
They went ahead and included youth screens, they included some of those other items in there, because of the savings on the lights went down 48,000.
Yes, from 72.
So also we're kind of down sort of by the number of years. But yes, the answer to your question, we've been starting this, we have pull windscreens out of that contract in order to be able to do that. Some of them have those windscreens or,
Because recently in your bid number one, up there, 276, including the windscreen. Is that correct?
no, we did not.
You didn't? No. I thought it included the windscreens and then the next was the lights and then the next was the shed.
The windscreens were in a separate, in their packet, it was submitted with the RFP response, it was a separate cost item, which was not included in the courts or the construction or the lighting. It was just a separate, we had listed that in the project scope. It's an item that we could do within the DOA. Again, we would have to pay for that regardless of whether it's in the contract or whether it does. We just thought that we could add perhaps save it in the money. Doing that, and it'd still be possible to do that. It would be easier from a front view standpoint. And for example, the sidewalk. If they do the sidewalk out there, they're already mobilized to be able to do construction work. But if we have to do it with a separate contract or whatever, we're paying for mobilization, having ready to put out, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if we really save a whole lot of money whether it's in the contract or whether we do that stuff. So,
Just asking.
to answer your question, we are very close to being able to do the courts themselves without funds.
So can you construct the courts without the lines? It's not expensive.
Yes. We would probably have to ensure. No, we would have to ensure that the lighting could be put in later. So there's some infrastructure. Construction.
So, we can go back to it, the other one we don't have in our package.
Yes. Got down one. Oh, no, it's.
Any other questions from the board?
I think one of the items that we need to think about here is that the cost of this is continuing to increase while we're talking through this. Back on part three, costs continue to go up and we have X amount of money, but with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this recommendation not to exceed $350,000.
Is there a second? Second, Chris seconds. There's a motion for you to approve the $350,000 not to exceed for the pickleball courts with Sport King as the vendor. Is there any other discussion?
I just want to clarify that we're talking 175,000 from CDRF, right, and another 75,000 and 100,000 for the sheet.
So that would be 75 per car. Any other questions? Discussion, Sean?
I'm fully support the course. It's a little bit unclear on we can have any money left in the car. I feel like that's just a little unclear in terms of what we have left for all the other funds that you're on basic.
Well, correct, it's somewhat common for this, like I said, getting close to training and then I provided the car updated sheet, including everything that's approved, planned, that we planned for 2025, plus the additional items today. We did everything within the end of this year, we'd be down $9,000. If we did everything, that includes the money for the front entrance, that includes everything that we earmark. So that they did everything 6 months. I think some of that's just practicality, getting everything done at that time, it's possible that we didn't get everything done down to the bottom.
If you know the first litigation, you will get $139,000, correct?
Correct.
$130,000 for
Only increase that's currently, so we're a little bit, 5% increase.
and if you don't put it out there,
That's correct. So,
so, okay. So, I got you.
I guess I was saying, our schedule, and you're saying that this is kind of already, so you have the $75 on the answer, you're saying.
yes, if you look at cards, I had it completed, approved, and then what we're doing today, and then proposed. All that added together, drops you down to 9,000. So we did absolutely everything by the end of this year. 9,000.
That includes things that are on the agenda, that includes things that are being proposed by Jeff's in the future. It also includes $400,000 for the funding for the city.
That's correct.
Does not include any adjustment if there's any funds that you choose to earmark from. Right.
That is correct also.
Give me additional funds there. We can do some questions. But. Any other questions?
And that's the one the way it's gonna say here, where that project costs probably. And there's
We didn't do this right here. Now we ask the box that Rich needs that question.
Inflation minus inflation going down, but concrete costs are going up, steel costs are going up, right down, so that's some percent items that go higher. So, don't know in the nearest future, but some of those topics.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
And
Whoops.
that's here. It's thank you again. Just wanted to say about that. $100,000 big association managed to probably really dependent on what we've done this year. That's what they told us they wanted to do. Back since this is kind of going on, they pretty much made it known to us that this would run out even weird. Something from that. That's kind of this to that out. But also the tax implications for us holding on to their money until next year. So that's
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Any other questions for the board? All right, you have a motion before you to approve $350,000 not to exceed for finishing up the construction with the sport team for pickleball courts. Are you ready for questions? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, those opposed? You only one, so we have 7 for and 1 opposed. Okay. The ayes have it, and we have appropriated. The chair would recommend that every person in this room that just clapped ensure that you let the rest of the community know that this chair values every dollar that comes to it. It has a hard line decision to make every time. And that we supported the Pickleball Association and we have supported our members and all the community to make a better community that we have. And that every time that people get out there and say that you don't do that, I would ask everyone that clapped who said that you do. Chris.
I was thinking, quick recognition, based on, something I did. Every court we looked at had a different configuration of lighting. And I thought, God. So, I took it on myself to, go out there again and prosper some places we visited before, Montana, like two and two in the prosper. Anyway, and to look at course at night, see what the lights look like. Okay, they all look fairly good, shadows on some, one was unacceptable, but that's, anyway, the prediction I'm making is, and it's surprise to me, is that Anna Prosper of Montana not only had people playing on every court, they had 12 courts or more, they had people making. You know this,
All right. We're gonna go for one more here, so if we can stand one more, give you the back to break. Let's see. Next item on the agenda is, our TABC lots and Friday buildings. The chair asks the people about people that are leaving when it goes. You can't stay, the meeting's still. There is more business that we'll be discussing about stating your member dues, such as,
The first thing on the GABC is currently we have a private club license. That mandates that we have to have a degree that is normal institute, you have to take an application because of our community status. When you buy a lot to become a member of the private club. And we have to maintain records, we have to keep them current. We're kind of okay about that, but we're not real good at it. We're better than we've ever been. And that's a requirement that they have. They check it regularly, and staying in compliance is very important. The advantage to changing from the private club to the mixed beverage is that it changes the regulations altogether. We do not have to have members that are part of the private club. We will have it as the PABC registration will change. Our current license expires in July, and the membership fees are annual. And if we decided to do this in 3 months, we would have to pay for the private club license in full, and then turn around and pay in full for the mixed beverage license, and that would cost us about $3,000. It's something that our lodge manager has done at Ropes and Ranch. He said it increased sales, it increased options. One of the advantages of switching to the mixed beverage is that we have a certain class of suppliers that we can reach that we cannot reach with a private club license. We'll have a greater selection of wines and other beverages. When we put in the wine cabinets, the people who have access to them will be able to order a better class of wine at a much better price. Another big advantage is that in relation to the part 3, we will be able to sell wine and beer at the part 3 when we get permission from the TABC to have that particular event or on an ongoing basis. And that will give us an opportunity to have some advantages on the part 3 that we don't have here because of the proximity to the current license, which is this building. And people will still have the advantage under the mixed beverage to bring their own beer and wine in their coolers, which I've noticed a lot of people that like I was in from time to time. And it won't interfere with this licensing. So our Jeremy has recommended it. He said it made a huge difference for him. We voted on it at the committee, discussed all of the advantages, and couldn't come up with any significant disadvantages. It cost a little bit more initially to go ahead and be changed and have to renew for this coming year. To go ahead and do it now is a good idea. Question?
Yeah, just curious why it took so long to try and make this decision.
It was the previous chairman of the lodging tavern. It came up, Jeremy is the one that brought it forward.
I just, it doesn't like we established the place 365 days ago, so I'm, just was curious as to why we had went that direction some time ago.
It was only 2 years ago that the TADC started recommending that people do this because it changes their paperwork and their inspection caseload tremendously. So I think ultimately they're going to require everyone to do this, and we're going to lose the private club opportunity. It really came up for counties that did not have the mixed beverage opportunity, and Cook County has approved it that 4 years ago, and we were just slow to jump on the bandwagon.
Right, it talks about wine, beer, what about liquor, is that different license, or is that added something?
It's included in the same license, it just we can't sell alcohol at a location other than this specific one as far as liquors and spirits go. But wine and beer we can, but not liquor.
Thank you.
So you can't sell mixed beverages on the normal park area. That would be correct. Okay.
One difference is that I know those of you who came to the concert from the cruise ship people, they did serve particular drinks that would have 2 cans on top of each other, and they would have an alcohol. They had margaritas, old fashions, 2 others, and yeah, marking. And you would unscrew the top one and then unscrew the bottom one, pour them together, put the lid back on the shaker. And you could come here, 5, 2, or 3, put them in your golf cart. You also had to buy food, which is why they have the little snack counter out there. So you buy a $3 package of crackers. And then you could go out and carry those drinks with you for the first time and so that up.
It's like the park room would be very popular. Just saying. Is there a motion before you? A motion?
That big thing, from the farm, from the big beverage, from the private club licensing to the next beverage license.
Is there a second? We have seconds? Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. And you have approved purchasing the new license, you next beverage. Thank you, Ronnie. All right, Ron, you're good again. Lodging Tavern on the wine cabinets.
We have approved the wine cabinets, we have the contract ready to go. We were waiting on Jeremy to find a wine refrigerator that was within the budget that he had allowed, and he has found that, and we're ready to go. We're proceeding with it, since it's been approved. The only thing left to do is to decide how we're going to allocate those initial cabinets. Because the committee discussed it and we couldn't come to a conclusion. The prevailing view was that we would do it by lottery. And we thought that the board should make that decision on how we would do that.
Is there discussion from the board? Is that how you want to do that?
Rich and I talked about it, we should do alphabetical answer.
Somehow in school, they usually do that for their reverse it, so they started with Z's since. Start in the middle, that's a good line. Yeah, odd number. All right, so do you have a list already of names?
know that we have already received requests from numbers in excess of the number of candidates we had.
Receive requests, okay. How many do you have?
We'll have 25 of them that have requested it.
No, how many?
We'll have 25 of the big cabinets, and then we will have a wine cooler that will hold 228 bottles, and those will be in rows of 3 divided, and so those could be leased separately. And we want to get the main ones in, and then we'll come back, and then the same system we use the available cabinets we'll use. And there's also going to be several people that will pair 4 people or 3 people into one cabinet, split the number of bottles. So we'll actually have a method of allocation that takes that into account.
So do those, right, would those, let's say 4 people decide to go together, they would have to say, we just want one?
Correct.
And are you, besides lottery, what were the other ideas that came up by the committee?
They have a deadline when we start, kind of like the Oklahoma land rush. And let whoever applies first. Anybody, if we do it online and then a lot number and have it.
Sean?
You remind me, do we already set a price or we do like sign off?
We had the right when we originally started. We calculated what it would cost in 1 year to recoup the cost, and that was at $650 initially.
For a year.
For a year. And part of our allocation process has to look into additional years after the first year.
Is the cabinet committee willing to administer the lottery?
Yes.
Okay.
You said you're video.
Yeah.
I'll just say that at least for the first year, we can see by lottery. See the comp.
Okay, the lottery being that everybody applies with the.
So then everyone who's interested has to abide by a certain deadline. So maybe.
That's very.
Maybe that's where they bring their best one. All right, do I have a motion for that then, John?
That's most.
That's the motion, all right, so,
Second.
all right, Chris seconds the motion, which is to have a lottery and the election gathering committee would administer it, is that correct? And they would set the dates, how would we let people know? What the time period is. It won't take long, it'll just say one date, and everybody in here is gonna, let's go with that, so.
I think we wait until we finish construction. And then go ahead and do it and publish it till the next month. And the communique says specific date. And then do the forms and have them available in your communique, to be filled out, sent.
All right, all those in favor of setting up a lottery system for the line campus, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and no other, no opposed, right? So 8-0 for you. Thanks, Ronnie. And one more, I believe. Try to get your exercise in. You get ready for pickleball, Chris.
This one, they award a $20 gift certificate periodically to the winner's drawing of written suggestions from members already realized the pattern. We've had a problem getting the opinion, comments, cards done. We get a few every month, like 2 or 3. And they have options that they can do it from several other sources, and it's just not getting done. So Jeremy suggested that we do a $20 gift certificate once a month, the drawing out of all of the submitted comments.
Are you asking for our approval to do that, or just letting it go?
Yes, all the life has its nice suggestions.
Somehow I'm thinking that would be within the scope of what, the lodge does, doing, but we all would like to pretty much know the angles.
I don't know when we can talk.
We can talk to him.
I mean, I'm for it, I just, what's just so we can pay for this,
I would say, because the food and beverage are only, is how I would think it would turn out.
the operating, but.
Again, I would say it would really fall for Jeremy and Rich to make that happen.
But I'm fine with that.
That, general consensus, is that okay from everybody that we do that? Can I do that?
And I don't think this is something more because I think it's not hard to do that.
Probably more than $20. Per month.
Understood.
Okay, Ron? So we make sense as we put that up. Thank you. So then, very good. Let's see, all right, thought getting. Probably that's you. So, we're gonna consider using our funds for, USGA course.
This if you had the handout of your package. We get a lot of criticism, all supporters out here, we get a lot of positive comments. All of them are mostly coming from people who don't know what they're talking about. He included, and I called the USDA and said, y'all have a program that provides an evaluation of certain aspects of golf course, and they said we do, for many years, and we send out an expert that is familiar with all the grass seeds, how to manage trees, how to do sand traps. You have numerous choices of what you want this expert to tell you. They do them in half-day sessions. If you buy 2 half-day sessions, it costs $6,000 if you do on both in a 1 year period. So you can have them a time of year and another time of year. They can come in and evaluate the efficiency of the course that is designed to speed up play, and you can make it a beneficial experience for the golfers. They can also evaluate the superintendent's attendance to certain issues and whether or not he's up to date on all of the current methods. They can evaluate how he can speed up the pace of play. And I think we have several options. You follow them and tell them do one of these, and then they will send someone else to talk to the meeting and then to the board, explaining what they do and how they do it. I think the decision can be made in conjunction with the golf superintendent and golf pro and the committee as to what they would recommend to the board to do. The committee did want to recommend that we would get 2 sessions, so $6,000. Savings about $1,500 rather than one at a time, or buying and all that.
I think it's a great idea. Plus another set of professional, or sets of professional eyes on our golf course, and to get that recommendation, like that, would be not, highly, beneficial, but we all know where our green status is, even if they could do something that would help us prolong life for them. Not if we didn't get any other benefits, any other benefits, but.
Is one of the services that provides as practices around in back to the golf community. Right. However, to your point, there's lots of opinions around in the golf course. It doesn't feel like to me today that helps get all together and get feedback. Because I think a lot of issues to me that come from golf course is you're right. there's on. Not everyone knows what's going on. So what's the top priority? Just a couple of thoughts. What are the top priorities and what goes to mind, say, all right, from NDA or community perspective? What are the most important things? You know, how do you funnel that out? How do you communicate back out for clients and world around what's going on? Because people assume this is the board election. And there's a female that's involved, and a couple people work together and that's it. More scripted responses well, but you know, a lot of them were just saying, I don't know what is our right list and our I'm sure these guys have some recommendations around what that's right.
They do one of the things they determine is a benchmark area, whether or not current programs are consistent or against recognized best management goals. And then the other one is recommend actions that align with your candidates and budget and build a consensus for planning issues around programs. So, and a lot of benefits they can provide.
So motion for you. All right, we have a motion to approve $6,000 for the USGA course evaluation.
I'll
Second,
second.
all right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Approved it, and how about we take a 10-minute break? And so let's come back and according to that clock up there, just a touch after 10:40. I'm scared to do the 10:45. 7:45.
I think the next item is the next board to deliberate and consider possible action to approve development of the golf course. My opinion, storm policy, I think we all know where this comes from. I was playing golf 3 years ago in Arkansas and was 30 feet away from an 80-foot pine tree that hit at the very top by a lightning bolt on a clear day, and the top 10 feet of the tree exploded into flames, and flaming pine cones and limbs were going everywhere. And I thought, what idiots we are to be playing. And I went back and went back, it started raining. We got in the clubhouse and I said, what y'all's policy? And I pointed to a little sign out in #1 key. And I didn't notice it. And I said, what does it say? It said, basically says that if you're being an idiot to be playing when they find you struck out ID, then you're involved in it's not ours, and our lawyer said that. So, I think we should have something that notifies us that our courses that have nothing more than 3 people that blow whistles at different locations. So the country club had one of the little airlines where you have on the boat, they're having it installed. They blew it from 2 locations of the course. And I think we could find something that we could do. They had packages that tell you when the blind meters within 4 miles. And they have apps on their phone that they'll approach from that, so they know when it's close. And we can develop a policy that I can be to decide from several areas, legal aspects of what our liability may be if we don't do anything. And practical aspects of what the distance is from one road to the other, and from one end to the other, of course, and what would be a cost effective, reasonable method to tell people that we don't propose, even if they don't have that sense on their own.
Are you asking for a special committee for that or part-time as well?
I think it should be a special committee, that's sort of legal, practical, electrical, including. I think board should have a meeting and for just making the recommendation that we do some.
That's too much. Is there a second to that? Cecil? If so, is there any discussion regarding that? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, you have approved it. And we will send it to this for this. And possible. All right. The next I have on here is consider possible action to approve November comment within the city of Garden Rule 33/9/25.
Here. We had a meeting that last golf park, particular nominating, and this issue came up. And we discussed what we needed to do, so we talked about it, and two people that have been very active in doing this. Craig Mank and Bill Adams. Gave me the language, went through the presentation of this, and then instead of all that state law or during for instance, riders in each car during non-playing spectators shall operate on the car paths with no crossovers. And we all agreed that that language was a little cumbersome. And so Jim and Craig rewrote it that said any car carrying 3 or more occupants and any car carrying only non-paying spectator or spectators shall operate only on car paths with no crossovers. And that's our recommendation, that we submit that for member review. If that's everybody's version, if that's necessary, or if it's considered as an amendment to what has already been proposed, already correct, being like the.
Since we said the other rule was not for members, I'm going to obviously we had send that one out. We so you said, I would ask the new chair, George, did you see this before? All right. Right, nothing, originally to. So second. All those in favor?
Questions. So, Ron, and I was looking at the rules today. Rule around, you have 2 people with a question. How does this, so in that scenario, 2 people, that, and that scenario, is like,
That was a problem, we can go back that I think. Problem.
And I guess that's like our question is, so the rule has 3.3.1. And so I just want to make sure we're creating updating the rule conflicts and just use what another rules are out. So I'm in favor of this, absolutely. I'm just trying to understand, can we word it in a way that if people, because if I'm playing with a 10-year-old in my life, when I want to be called card, I'm gonna. So I'm just trying to, make sure that this works across all rules.
So for minutes, that was Jim Adams, what, 6666? 666, right, 3 6s. And he made that comment. So Dan, how are you thinking that needs to work for them?
I don't want to make it more complicated, because I know the goal here was to make it easier and simpler. But to me, if we put some reference underneath that, that says this doesn't conflict, whatever it doesn't apply to.
It does say, with the exception outlined in section 3.9.20, number of riders. And that refers back to your,
Okay, that's how as if I missed that.
well, that's not in this revised version, but it's in the current operation number of persons.
Okay,
That's the original minutes.
okay, I missed that, so that's true, that's great, I'm very happy with this.
This sentence replaces, in your packet, you had a copy of, the rules recommendations. And this is on page 4.444. It's the very last sentence. And so it's replacing multi-seat golf carts. It would now read, and then that section is outlined there.
Very well.
Is that okay? All right.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir, Sean.
So I understand the rule 0.25 rule limits players to two, but you said that the number is under 12 or under. But if the golf cart contains two players plus a 12 or under player, then that car's limited past that. Or that would be at least the implication of the rule. Which, I mean, that's fine, it is what it is, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud, is like, in terms of pace of play, you got a child, I mean, is that, it's that causing some slow play. You got 3 plus a kid, who's having a block out.
Two plus a child.
Yeah, so if you're at two adult and child, you can still go out on, of course, it wouldn't be your own card, with the exception that I missed on.
Okay, so the title of the rule is car operations number of persons, so the rule limits 2 players to a car, with the exception of if there's a child, that's the exception to the number of players. Then the last sentence deals with restricting 3 or more riders to the car, so those are 2 different things.
Well, there's a difference between players and riders. Number of players in the golf carts too. Then it gets down, if that will replace in the very last sentence, then it would relate to how many occupants are in there and non-playing spectators.
Any car carrying 3 or more occupants shall operate on a car path also, which is how the proposed rule. So that I read that to be that you're allowed to have 3 players if one of them's a child, but you can't have it on the car path.
Drivers, players, 2 players.
Yes.
There's only 2 golf bags on the golf cart. And there's only 2 players in the golf cart. That's what all of our rules say. Am I correct? No?
No.
I think it's, if you go, I don't have it in front of me, but if you go up above, it says 2 players and a child, it's like.
That's correct. The rule 0.20 says you can only have 2 players, but if one of the kid, basically, you have 3 players.
Okay.
That's what I understand. You have 2 players, but if one's a kid, you have.
Yeah.
But then under the implication of this proposed language, I'm not usually just trying to think out loud. But the consequences are that, okay, if we have two adults and 1 kid, you gotta save the car path. How's that gonna affect basic play? Whenever you've got 3 players that have to walk out the ball, and one of them's a kid. Is that how affecting them? That's possibly what slow things. And I guess balance that with what is the potential damage to the course? I guess there's a reason, kind of rationale for the rule to limit traffic on the golf course when it's having people waiting on the car. Is that correct? So, I mean, I wonder.
They have checked that you better hotline call, but not that problem, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to make this too confusing, but I'm just thinking like the way I interpret the rule as proposed, it would limit 2 adults and a kid to the car path, which is fine. I just kind of the implication is that's going to possibly go slow.
Yeah, I don't think that's the intent, right? They don't disagree with the intent that
Yeah,
two bills and could fall under regular reference.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's the agenda, I think that's the, yeah. Right.
Can we take another stab at it and then bring it back?
We send it back to the rules committee, and let them consider all of those statements.
And I thought it was pretty close, and I think the intent is good.
I would think you would include Sean and Jim Adams in that. Triad and people.
We'll figure it out.
Thank you, Sean. All right, we're gonna send that one back, we're back in then, all right. Thank you very much, I appreciate that, moving along, all right, now we have the rest of the rules and procedures. That was submitted before, that has gone out to our members. George, you're up for that, and I know that we have in our packet, we have some comments from members. That have given us comments that they said things to us.
That's been out for almost 2 months now because of the short time between April and May board meeting. I personally have had no official or unofficial comments on any of those changes. I spoke with Rich 3 weeks ago or so, and at that point he had not had more than 2 or 3 comments. I don't know what you have in front of you, but in general, I would say that the community has accepted the changes. Unless you've heard otherwise, I have not, and I would hope we move forward with them.
So I think we have 5 member comments, I think that were in there. One was related to the card rule. And so I think we have 4 that came back. Does anybody see anything in the comments that,
Those have been shared with the answers on that survey.
we have? Yeah, Mom?
I think one point, one of the items in these comments was, this is to raise revenue for the POA, which, is not the case. But also, if you think about it, right now, if you look at all the citation, the ACC, security, whatever, we raised just about 1.5% of all the revenue for Kiowa. So if you double it, right, you're just under 1%. So it makes no viable difference to the budget. You have to go up by 10x to make any kind of revenue to the community. So to me, I think you just need to make sure that we must have benefit with the reality of that. The amount of money that's raised here is minimal.
And the intent's not to raise money, it's to act as a deterrent, primarily for safety issues. Speeding being the most common.
I think the comments here relate back to, you being, somebody said that we do this all the time. And I think you said, George, we haven't done this in about 5 years, 5 or 6.
2017 or so, right? So even before that, right?
Fees. So they stayed pretty consistent with their, and the other was just saying, going back to what Gail was talking about, being very punitive with what we're doing. But George's point, part of that is to change behavior if we're not changing the behavior.
We have, if you remember, one of the major complaints was, unknown guests, contractors and delivery services and such. And so we did modify that. So a member wasn't going to get kind of, I guess, the 3rd and 4th time lose privileges because Walmart was speeding through here. So we did modify that. We thought, I haven't seen anything, even Rich's comments, that
suggested that they don't like the change in that. They would only be punished at the first level for that, yes. And not use privileges or go against their accumulated violations in that category.
I guess the other part that goes back to that also is, we have nothing in our rules that says we do or do not provide warnings or anything like that. So there's nothing in there that says that we should always give a warning beforehand, or that we should, with these type of rules, in fact, infractions, that we should give a warning or, this level or anything like that. So there's nothing else that's in there.
Nothing in the rules, it's at the discretion of security.
Discretion of security that comes to the rules committee, that comes to the board.
It seems to be the cycle.
It seems to be. Is there any other discussion on the rules changes that were presented? Any discussion from the board?
And
Yes.
I read the comments and I actually agree with some of the sentiment in them that I like 15 years ago when I knew all of the security personnel and I considered them security personnel, not traffic cops or not someone trying to raise revenue. And I think we really need to be careful when we're reviewing these rules and try to keep this as a community of people who are concerned about each other and are concerned about fairness and equality. And I think a big part of that will be giving warnings to someone rather than issuing the citation, because we really aren't trying to make money. We're not supposed to be trying to make money. We're supposed to be making sure the rules are followed. And I think sometimes a warning is much more effective than a citation. I just think we should be cognizant of that.
And that was the information that I had. That was one of the comments that I had from Dylan, is that he felt like that we needed to look at how we were giving some things. So do we need to give a warning first on some things? If that made more sense to be able to do that. So that was also his comment too.
I interject.
Sure.
Please follow.
I'm gonna say Senate Bill, I think it's Senate Bill 1844, which discusses curable and non-curable. So a lot of curable offenses are positive control of pets. My address is lost. Mowing. Loud noises, disturbing sounds. Things of that nature, they get a warning, but a lot, and we put out the monthly report that I said and done. So there's a lot you can read and try to make it bigger. If you're gonna read and still do welfare checks, it's just that greasy wheel, as you will say, well, here's more. We do welfare checks, we go out and we move people's trash, bring their trash in, take their trash out. There's still a whole lot of that. Help find people's dogs. There's just a whole lot. I had 3 people come by today and thank us for what we do. It's just you get 28 speeding tickets, 23 speeding tickets in a month, and people think that everybody's getting a speeding ticket. We're not gonna write you a speeding ticket for 30 miles per hour. It's not what we're doing. But all of a sudden, everybody puts them next door. And we think that we're being traffic cops, but that's not what it is. I mean, we put the number on there, we don't even write a speeding ticket one day. But we don't pull you over for 30, like that. So I've heard.
So don't tell them that. You can't tell them
But
that.
I'm just saying, I've heard rumors that she pulled, my grandma over for doing 28 miles per hour. And that's not true. We don't pull you over for 28 miles per hour. I don't have the number for us, but yeah, 23 tickets in a month. And then they say we're hiding. Well, we've got to find someplace to go. But we do welfare checks. We do take it to friends. We do help you find your dog. I had one of the guys go out on the jet ski the other day, or the boat. He went on the boat and he pulled in a chair. He pulled in 3 chairs. He pulled in a kayak after the storm. He didn't get movements. He pulled in all those things. It's just those things that don't get the attention. So I promise you, we're still doing that. We stop and we talk to people walking dogs. I do that every morning when I first come in. I go around and we stop and do all that. It's just that's not what's getting attention. It's those 23 seating units. You know, not putting the message.
I don't think anybody's saying that we're not doing a good job from a security perspective. I think that, our concern, as well as the members, would be, are we doing the right thing for everybody? So. Thank you, Steve.
Make one more time.
Sorry.
Most of these violations, they get a citation, and she does issue a lot of warnings for those things, are safety issues, speeding or blowing a stop sign. That's the primary focus for security when they're making these kind of stops and issuing citations. And there happen to be a handful of people that seem to think that they can do that pretty regularly. They're the ones who seem to be complaining.
Any other comments from the board?
So I agree that public safety is for being critical offenses as it's not, obviously you don't have sidewalks, that's not functioning ever. It doesn't have the signal feed for drunk sober, so I do appreciate the efforts, just kind of trying to be safe, so it's all fun. Right.
All right, any other discussion? All right, and so the motion before you would be to accept the changes that have gone out for public comment, and the changes to the rules, which would be the fees, some of the fees that are there, and then some of the wording we changed. Other than the golf cart rule, which is free, and something, 339 to file. We'll pull that one out. Chris. Yeah. Okay. You all ready for the question? All right. All those in favor say yes and raise your hand. All right. Thank you. All right. You have accepted all of those rules changes. And George, I guess we'll make those in the. I guess we'll do that in the brief. Your way. We'll make those and get those posted up for us. And you can prove that 8-0. All right. This is not, it is an our person reporting, but it's not on. So Rich, you're on.
All right, well, I'll jump right in and do the request. As mentioned before, power was getting kind of tight, but we're trying to expand on the Little Wolf Park. We've already got a lot of requests to fish in the pond.
Little Wolf?
Little Wolf, no, Park, yes, Little Park, sorry.
How long?
That's actually the cove. So we have a pond up there and a little pier drawn in. I originally requested to do a T-shaped pier. You have the proposal in front of you. After kind of looking at that, I was, a square pier, kind of like the fishing pier we have up here, actually more conducive. So it would be the same cost, same square footage, but I think square, just maneuvering around it again would be better than a long narrow T-pier. Again, that's just under $25,000. It would actually connect to the trail once we put that in there. And sometime in the future, money provides to a little pavilion there as well, similar to what we have at Little Fox Pond. Again, it's orientated at that location, basically in the circle of the pond in about 90 degrees. That's accessible. 2 sides are fenced in by barbed wire, and basically are right on the property line. And the side on the east side is a large embankment, which I wouldn't encourage people to walk out there or fish from there. Even if they do, I wouldn't encourage that. So trying to promote them to go fish out in the pier. The lake or the pond itself is about 1 acre. So it's quite large. It's about 4 to 5 times larger than Little Fox Pond. But I think it's going to be, again, with all everything else going on over there, I think it'll be a place where fishermen will want to go and see that as well.
Yeah, we have an event every spring, Kid Fish Little Fox Pond. This adds another amenity that
where kids or folks that don't have boats, it's a public access area. It's not the lake, but it will be a stop off and people want it. Point what's that.
I would have been shocked if that is.
We did part of that stock during the big survey by American Sportfish. People fish out of that or learn about that. We'll go and yeah, fish. Same some golfer. Golfer bonds for the future.
Any questions? And entertain a motion, would you like to motion? All right. Is there a second? You can very second this time. All right, so you have before you a motion to approve $25,000 not to exceed the park funding for efficient period of Little Pond. Any discussion? Sorry.
Maybe not makes it. Terms of the passing, sorry. It's nice little concern. They raise them.
Not part of that would be also a steel structure, positive decking, and all that such as accidents. It is not going to tell you to see how much it's going to turn out. It's almost everything struggles. It'll be fine to start for about a month, but once this goes in, this is fairly certain part of the first line of dots. It's child work, actually, it's not. It's just happy as well, and it's sensitive. Yeah, it's months, 5 times 10, it's 3 months. Hopefully, once the driver makes use trail, how long that trail's gonna take, it's a little over a mile, that's probably gonna, I don't know, talk about something, I'm not waiting, months.
Discussion.
It's a bridge like that, it's not a problem. They're phenomenal. Just part of the building, right? It's amazing.
So you have a motion on the
I think we spent a lot of money. Here this way. It's another meeting.
So would you like to take your motion off the table or you want to vote in the two? I'll withdraw. You have those options. Okay. Is that okay with you? All right, is that okay with the rest of the members? All right, we should take that motion off the table, Rich, and we'll bring it back to the building.
September, anytime.
See where we are with the walking.
Or I'll try to go through this, some of these, I didn't touch on the previous presentations, but I'm just gonna try to encourage again, but slow delays, but last thing they want is support from the structural engineer or more information, regarding the foundation, so after the geotech. And we revised the report, what else advice, if the foundation and design wrapped up, that's the last step, they get the starting documents. Property, goal, as I stated, since spring, he's been watering it. It's moving along as fast as the grass can grow. That's one of the local as soon as we can get it ready. Driving range, same thing. We're waiting for it to get sprigged. That'll probably be about a month behind the our free course. Dam, as you know, we've been out there working with the barge or Chapman Marines are working out there. The they cleared the area by the tower, which was quite an undertaking as it was. There was about 6 feet of silt, which really wasn't the main issue. They had to remove numerous trees, buckets of concrete, 30+ tires. It literally was a dumping ground down there, which we'll probably have to address in the future. Right now, they're patching some of the small cracks in the tower. We exercised the valve. We did it with the plug in place. So only a little bit of water came out, the valve opened, and then we opened it under pressure. Partially, there were no issues with the valve, the pipe, the outlet, so that's all good news. So we'll move on from then, and then I'll have a briefing with BDA, and one of the discussions going to be, and we're talking about a little bit what we do about the inlet in the future. One suggestion is maybe adding a 90-degree pipe elevated, so the debris doesn't get covered up. Right now it's just a box and then a grate. Another thing is we'll have to be careful. Over time, the silt will collapse. So we'll look at one point either and put a little wall around it. But regardless, wherever we do, keep boats away. We put buoys, around the tower so folks can access it because would just put the word out, but really everyone has to stop dumping everything, fishing habitats, everything has to take clear of that inlet area. So we'll address that later in the future, but good news on valve, that works. So that's by saving us another hundreds of $1,000s or more in abandoning creating a new valve. So that's really good news. I have in their public works, attachment. Basically, it's pretty sensible. All the things that we're working out with the road repair, obviously, spent over $200,000 in roads so far. So it is patching. That's come back with striping. The lodge, we're working on put some more ceiling fans in there, some other new additions. We got some repairs we're working on. We're trying to get the big fans in the pavilion fixed. They're not operable. Most obvious is the east gate, which is down. The latest estimate we have is not right after the front. Looks like they'll have everything, the equipment delivered, installed probably the 6th, 7th, or 8th after July. So we'll work with Mel and figure out what we can do to try to expedite traffic in the east gate, especially over the 4th of July weekend. And then the beaches, we're going to try to get the beaches off there. And most of the time it's going to be just traffic for the 4th of July this week. Just to touch on the security update with Mel, I mean, you look at the bottom, we don't talk about the citations, but there were 19 warnings submitted by security itself, and there were 27 by clients, so 46 warnings were issued as opposed to 63 citations. So it's a bit split between warnings and a citation. That's it, unless anyone else has any questions or comments.
Can you just pull off kind of the number off of that security report, and it's called passes? Can you tell us how many passes were called in the month of May?
That's what it's on. The month of May passes. You know that number, Mel? You remember offhand? I thought it was even more than that. That'd be 859.
But 859 passes were called in security. And so what's the process for security passes? Just wondering if I didn't know them.
They call me over the phone or do the online work.
That's calling in to say, hey, you need to put in a fast.
No.
That's just phone now. Because I would say daily passes. I mean, daily just passes and passes. You're at 700 something for a morning.
One day.
That is very people. And we'll ask them, hey, if you put your pass in, oh, I don't have time. Hey, are you where we haven't had? Have it, I haven't come. Yeah, yes.
So I have Rich say that number because that's, I mean, that's not our process. And again, we talk about that people, everybody follows our processes out here, but obviously we don't. And so when you worry about security being out there and patrolling and things like that, if they're have to take phone calls all the time to let their guests in, that takes up their time.
So do about 600 hours of patrol. That includes what else I age. You're doing the armadillos, possums.
Stay up the list for today. Can we do so much customers for this? Not, lights not shining on them.
Right. So 859 passes the people called in versus using their app and to be able to do that. So I think that's important to call out every now and then to see how well we are complying with our policies and what we ask people to do and help them. And so, and if there's people that really can't do it, then I think that's an opportunity for us to continue to work with them in some way. So.
I refer them to, not really help them, I refer them to Kindle that help them.
Right, right. I mean, there's other ways to do that, but I just thought that was interesting when you look at all the numbers that are out there.
Yeah, I was more shocked when I heard that number that, you know, Ellen told me some of that before. To me, to your point, Nancy, how do we continue to get that out there and say, the process is, I know it comes in constant contact, communication, but are there other ways we could get that message out and support, you know, security when they say, sorry, I can't help you, you know, which is the only way we'll cover shop, right? If you say, go to the app, but this will help you. I'm like, okay, well, they still got my pass in, so there has to be some way we continue. I know it's probably, I don't know what the numbers are, but start, you know, moving to evaluating people, but it seems there's a constant flow of people calling.
It's like it, but you know, that's not always it's easier to say than we do it.
Awesome.
From that perspective.
Absolutely.
Real quick now.
My goal this week with all my July school course stuff, I was gonna put out, because we won't take call and pass for July 4th. I just don't have the manpower. But I was gonna put together pictures on how you should do app pass.
I think that'd be
So
great.
that's gonna be one of my constant contacts is.
That'd be great. Okay. We often wonder how the line gets so long sometimes. All right. Anything else, Rick, that you got? Is there any additional?
Well, we had a lot of comments from buoys and I just spoke to somebody yesterday and today. Hopefully we got all the buoys straightened out, so they're all set for now, at least hopefully there will be a good storm. I put an article in the paper about July 1st, GCRF actually initiates the July statements. You'll see the GCRF on your statement. It'll show $15, but really there's no increase in the overall fees. Your ARP, which was $44, whatever, is going to go down to $29. So it will be an additional line of $100.
Okay, so in July, the golf course certified will be showing them.
Yeah.
Understand. Great. Here for those calls, okay. All right, any other additional business to come before us before we break for executive session? All right, any other comments from the members? You have one more chance. Any other comments from the members? Gerald does. Okay, Gerald. Hey, so your name is J.E.
Yeah, Daryl Smith, 1419, Kendall knows where I live. Before we forget it, we've experienced, in the last month, a lot of storms, a lot of dangerous situations in this community. And I can't go with it being unnoticed and unrecognized. The POH staff, what they did to make us safe and make things convenient for us by having the dumpsters there. I don't know how many dumpsters you completed and filled up, but Troy and Steve and the staff are down there. They're crossing, when trees get across the roadway, people come out in their PJs, right, Scott?
Yeah.
And Mel, stick to what a crossing do. If it's closed, it's closed. Don't let people drive through.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you don't listen and let the minority influence your decisions and your attitude, because there's many more of us that support you and what you do each and every day. So, thank you.
very much.
Thanks, girl.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Any other business?
Ken Bobzo, Lot 69. First off, ditto what Gerald said, I use those dumps from since, so thank you. But on the call-in, the app, or try to do extensively, but for those that this may aren't that friendly or whatever, so if we could change the input form there a little bit, with the it's confusion if you got a contractor in versus relative, and first name, last name, no place to put that, just like, you know, HVAC company in, or, the name, just, help out there, but I don't know.
Planning in mind, constant contact, just to simplify it. Just to basically say that if it's named to that company, just say that that's the name. So I hope to simplify.
On number.
Yeah, but no, not necessary, and email's not necessary, so I'm gonna put all that out there and hopefully simplify. I think.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Bill. Any other comments from members? Do I have a motion to go into executive session in like 5 minutes? So we have Chris, Sean, all those in favor? All right, so you are dismissed and except for the board, you guys get to stay. We have a 5-minute break.